All right, evening everyone. It's Dave here, and just wanted to welcome you and thanks for joining us for the NBA webinar for 2018-19. I'll get to Brett in just a moment, but to give you an idea of what we're going to cover tonight, obviously Brett's NBA modelling techniques and how he goes about beating the bookies there. We'll also talk about why he's decided to share these bets over the last couple of years, and obviously he still has plenty of his own action, but why there's a membership base for them. We'll talk about last year's results, and we'll obviously take some questions as well. So definitely throughout the night, feed the questions through. There's a little chat pad there where you can send them to me, and I can ask Brett any of those questions throughout. Obviously, we're here because there is a membership or 3 membership offerings for this season. We've got an NBA Specials membership, which we'll talk about in a bit more later on, but that focuses on mainly player and some team performance bets on the side markets. There's a first halves membership, as the name suggests, focuses on first half bets, that's sides and totals. And then there's a pretty unique membership, NBA Platinum, which actually has an almost unlimited amount of bets with the player engine sheet, but also a lot of prescribed bets as well, which is pretty much only limited by your bank and the number of bookmakers that you're willing to have accounts with. So we'll run through a fair bit about that later on. For now, I'll welcome Brett. How are you, mate?
Good, Dave. Yeah, it's good to come back on the show or come back on the webinar after a long hiatus.
Time flies, mate. Doesn't seem like that long ago that we're doing the 2017 preview.
Yeah, true. Yeah, it's gone all very quickly. But glad to be back on board with the NBA and looking
Good to hear.
forward to a big.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll hand it over to you now as far as what you can present, and I know there's a fair
Yep.
bit that you'll keep to yourself because can't give everything to the bookies who may be watching tonight. But just run us through in general terms at first, and then we can drill down if there's interest from the guys along tonight. A bit of an overview of what you do, how you go about the modelling of say NBA in particular. We can talk about other sports later on if necessary. But what's the process in modelling NBA and then finding where the value bets are?
So, okay, yeah, great. So I'll just kick it off. So we first of all, for those of you that don't know much about myself and who we are and what we've been doing, we're a small syndicate that I would like to say is on the rise. I personally built my first model very early in 2010, and I've thrown myself at this endeavour 7 days a week since. Uh, we're now where we are. We're a very data science heavy orientated sports betting syndicate. We're not old school handicappers. There's no subjective opinion. There's no watching video or form. It's very much down in the data, very data orientated approach, and so we essentially focus on using machine learning and artificial intelligence algorithms. I've got a master's in applied stats, but I sort of left the conventional stats world. Yeah, as soon as I finished my master's and got into the wide world of machine learning and all the sort of almost unlimited capabilities that these algorithms seemingly possess. So it's been a journey of how to figure out how to use them properly, uh, how to build them, how to tune them, how to feed them in the right way. It's been a very long and arduous journey. I've made a lot of mistakes, but here we are now. So yeah, so that's essentially my background. There's probably about nine individuals now in this organisation. Some of those guys are offshore. They're full time. We've got a full time programming team offshore that now helps us out with the automation of certain aspects, and actually very excited to talk about the automation that's going to be provided in the future going forward in time. But there's a lot of stuff going on with us. There's always a lot of stuff going on. We've attacked multiple sports over the last 7 or 8 years, and I've made available most of those to champion picks. There's some very exciting projects, very big ticket items that I can't really talk about outside of what we've normally done in the past. And yeah, that's very exciting for us as well.
All right.
So
I think if you accept the invite that I just gave you before, we should be able to see one of the sheets that you work on and one of the
so
models.
you can't see anything yet.
No, you should
Oh,
probably
okay.
got a little pop-up that said to become the presenter.
Yep, great.
There we
Obviously, you
go.
guys
Yep,
can
we've
hear
got it.
me. Obviously, I've been heard the whole time.
Exactly.
Great, awesome. Okay, so what we can see here is the platinum package. So I thought rather than talk about the NBA specials, which is essentially uh, a small subset of a much larger uh, throughput and capability, I thought let's just go to the source, the much more variance robust source of where the NBA specials come from, and that's from our so-called platinum solution. So we launched this platinum solution. It was 2 seasons ago. It was actually quite funny. Dave basically, I could tell that he basically could not believe what I was claiming. And then after a few thousand bets in a month or two, he started to believe. And then on a part season, in our first season, I think we pumped out about 9,000 picks over about 3/4 of a season or so. And so that led into last season. Last season was a bit of a step up again. So we introduced a proper late feed capability, and we also kept on sort of working on our solution, tuning it up, making sure it was the best it could be. And Dave actually underestimated the amount of output or throughput that we had last season. We didn't have 11,000 bets. We had 11,800 plus a live feed, a so-called live feed, which people had to log into about half an hour to 45 minutes after the initial drop. We published a further 6,000 bets in the live feed as well. So there's around 18,000 bets throughout the course of last season. We also threw some NHL in there, and I can explain why we did that, or can explain why we initially started taking it ourselves, and then how that relates to you guys. So that was essentially what was achieved last season. 18,000 bets, 686 units in the initial drop, and another 360 in the late feed. And we pumped out a small amount of profit here as well. So with the NHL, that was like a new addition. Part of the issues, as you know, some more savvy punters will much appreciate, is that it's very difficult to get on, and you have to really play a cat and mouse game with the bookies to try and get on. So what we started doing is that we started cross boarding. So would create two-leg parlays or two leg multis, and we would start crossing our stuff over with non-NBA. And the NHL was the perfect sort of partner to that, and that's what we started to focus on. We started to focus on finding this NHL, because it's essentially a daily partner that gets played at the same time every day, 7 days a week, just like the NBA. So it was the perfect cross-sport opportunity. There are other things that we do. There are other sports, there's other stuff going on behind the scenes just for us personally, but the objective still applies for everyone involved. We have to be able to get on, and that's always the
Just to jump
hardest
in there,
problem.
Brett, trying to explain why the cross-sport multis are part of what you do and other people should probably consider it.
Look,
You don't
let's
have
just
to.
say, just do it. It's good for you. It's good for you. Yes, obviously, like you need to look to control your variance, control your volatility, but it's great for you to do that kind of thing. Given the given the nuances of client profiling systems out there, there's a lot of things you can do to help with account longevity, and that's one of them. There are
Sure.
other tactics, but that's just one of them I'm open to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's essentially what occurred last season. Yeah, so going into the main consideration, or the main struggle of of what we do in this sort of prop area, and that's getting on, right. And I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of questions about how do I get on, how do I get on. Well, you know what? welcome to reality, guys. Like this is a I or we basically run an up and coming syndicate, and we are very partial to being the sweatshop operation that we really are at this point in time. Yeah, I've got big ticket items that are quite liquid. I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff, but it is what it is. You know, we run a low level sweatshop like punting operation that just gets the action on any single way we can. I'm partial. I've done it all. I've run terminals. I've I've had bowlers. I've had blokes working in offices, three guys at a time, betting $40 at a time. I've had I still remember Dave called me up, and I'm driving around in the car with 20K in cash, handing money to bowlers and picking up tickets and handing off tab credit vouchers. I've done it all. I've done it all because I now very much embrace where I am in the food chain. I'm not one of the most top level syndicates getting around. I've met some of the biggest guys in the world, and I can definitely tell you they aren't going around in their car, doing the whole tab credit voucher thing. They aren't paying bowlers for $40 at a time. They're onto the big ticket items. So, as part of our transition towards that kind of paradigm, we need to be in the trenches and look to monetize whatever we can. And given that we've got a whole bunch of effort in this soft stuff, in this what I call the soft underbelly of the bookmaker, yeah, it's an absolute struggle. It's even a struggle for us. Hence the reason why we try to monetize what we do by selling it as well. So once we've had our fill, or we can't get on more than what we can, we then start to release to the public so they can get on. So I'm still monetizing what I do, and I'm gaining the greatest absolute amount of return for our efforts in building our processes over the last 7 years in esports.
Yep. So this is the meal. This is the fantastic 5-star meal. What's interesting for a lot of people, I'm sure, is the recipe, the ingredients that go into that. What can you tell us about, the models that you use, how those are developed, and also the fact that I think you call it a model ensemble. It's not just one big model that either works or it doesn't. You actually feed a number of models into your approach, your ensemble approach, and then the best performers are weighted more heavily, and you're constantly re-optimizing at player and team levels.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So let's go into just to give a high level overview of how this modeling solution works. So about 2 years into this journey of ours, we decided to scrap what we were doing and start again, and we were going to build a unified, generic um, feature engineering technology. So that might mean nothing to most people, but being a data scientist, and maybe there's data scientists out there or guys that have a very data orientated bent to their punting or bookies or whatever. Um, from my experience, feature engineering is king. I don't care what the models do. I could teach a monkey to train a model. I could teach a monkey to tune a model. It's not that difficult when you understand how to do it right. When you know how to optimize the hyperparameters of a ML solution. But where where the creativity lies, where the dark arts lies, is the feature engineering. How do you? And I kind of I've had to explain myself before to lay people about what the hell am I talking about? What is the feature engineering? There's a process in algorithm creation. I call it the algo whispering process, where you have to kind of whisper into an algo's ear in a certain way to make it understand what you really want it to do. And that is a form of art that has taken me a long time. And our technology stack that we've been building on the last 7 years, at its very heart, it's a feature engineering technology. So it essentially can consume a box score and other factors that may dictate how something works, and it sort of breaks into that space. It breaks open that space, and it dimensionalizes it in a very different sort of array of ways. So I can break into a box score, like say an NBA box score, and I can rip out 30,000 ideas or factors or features that I can feed to a machine learning algorithm. So we essentially took a punt on very high dimensions to try gain a competitive advantage on whoever else may have been doing this. So we said, okay, let's go high tech from the start. Let's struggle with the technological leap of doing what we were doing to a point where we have this unified technology that helps with scalability, because we were sort of looking to build towards the future always. So having the ability to have a scalable and unified technology that has the ability to migrate from sport after sport relatively quickly was was an objective that I had 6 years ago, 5 years ago, and it's taken us this long to get to the point where we it seems like we're reaching scale a little bit. Things are rolling much easier. It's easier to expand into different markets. It's easier to expand into different sports because of this feature engineering technology that we've built over the last 7 years. So yeah, that's essentially it. I've harped on about feature engineering rather than the models, because to me you could use a regression, you could use, I don't know, a neural net, and there's all kinds of neural nets out there. You can use, I don't know, random forests. You can use support vector machines. You can use whatever. Um, the most important thing is what's feeding those algorithms, and how and in what manner are they being fed. Are you exposing the problem space to them in the correct way, so they can get into the nooks and crannies of the problem space, so they can generate the best solution possible. That is where the art lies, not in the model tuning. Um, in saying that, yeah, like it probably took me 3 or 4 years to learn how to tune models correctly, but that was because I was very much self-taught. There are ways to tune models correctly, and it's quite easy. So I always sort of de-emphasize the model tuning aspect of the whole process. And finally, there's a meta modeling solution, and as I was talking to Dave prior to this whole webinar, it essentially optimizes along multiple vectors. So it doesn't look at what the best model is right then and there, like in global terms, as in what's the best solution over the last 2 weeks across the whole problem space. It actually has different. This meta modeling has different hierarchies, so has multiple vectors. So it looks to optimize along, how accurate a model has been against a player's accuracy, against that team's accuracy, and against a global idea of accuracy. So there's three hierarchies working in sync, and then what is spat out at the end of that is a final estimation, a final projection, um, given those sort of that three-layer hierarchy of optimization, or meta modeling optimization that leads us to the final projection.
Okay. Last time you shared a sheet that had a bit of an overview on how the various weightings work, and how the player forecasts can be volatile depending on the inputs that you choose and the weighting you give to those. Is there anything like that you'd be able to share tonight?
We're in the process of almost complete automation of this capability, which I was going to talk about later on. I feel like we don't have to go through all webinars. Like guys can basically watch last year's webinar and see certain outputs, see how things work. So I don't think we should flog a dead horse and show the same thing again. I'm interested in talking about new capabilities and new things. But yeah, you guys can watch the old webinar. Let me just say that processes are continuously changing in this business. I can't rest, or we can't rest on our laurels. We have to keep on improving, and one of the capabilities that we've looked to build going into this season, and going into really as many sports as possible, but it's essentially complete automation of everything that we do. So right now, we delivered 18,000 bets last season from three traders. So three traders would have a console, a trading console, and they would literally look at the trading console, eyeball the market that they saw on some other screen, um, take the market line and price, pump it into the trading console, and then the trading console would tell them what to do. So it was a very menial process of going market after market, putting it in, figuring out whether there was an edge, going to the next market, so on and so forth. And what these guys eventually figured out is that they sped up their sort of speed to market because they could eyeball without having to even put in the line and price into this trading console anymore. Given that they had looked at, each of these guys had probably priced 100,000, 200,000 markets over the last couple of seasons. So they just had an innate ability to speed up the process just by eyeballing prices and lines, and rather than having to input them into the trading console to figure out whether something was a bet or not. And that helped to take us from 10,000 bets 2 years ago to 18,000 bets last season. But that's still just a band-aid solution. What the real solution is complete automation of the whole capability. And we persevered to finish that last season. So I mentioned before that we have an offshore programming team that works full time for us now. And a few of those guys were assigned to this automation project, and it's almost complete. We're kind of in the user acceptance phase. Well, we were in the user acceptance phase of that delivery late last season, but we just ran out of time. So we're going to confirm the capability in the first days to weeks. Hopefully, it doesn't take more than a fortnight of this season, and then once this full automation has been launched, then that essentially transforms the way we do NBA Platinum. It transforms everything for everyone involved. So essentially, we can scrape and automatically price every single book in this country. And so essentially no stone will be left unturned. We can run the capability multiple times a morning. So as lines and prices bounce around, a certain line might get some resistance. Some lines might not move. Lines might move too far because most of these books don't really have much of a clue, in my honest opinion, as to how to deal with like push chart values. Like we have certain mechanisms that generate individual push chart processes for every single player, given a player's individual standard deviation. And I just don't think the bookies are doing that, whereas we are. So we know if a bookie hasn't moved far enough, has moved too far, hasn't moved at all, if a line moves the other way, because there might be, some very popular player. Like we can now capture all the dynamics of the market as it's moving through time. Whereas I honestly think that we were leaving thousands of bets on the table last season because we just simply did not have the manual capability with three sets of eyes to constantly rescan the market, recheck. Can we repop a bet here? Can we bet the other side here because it's plus EV to close it off and get the middle. Like we just didn't have the ability to do that. Whereas now we do have the ability to do that. So what does that mean for the NBA Platinum package? It means that we go from, I think we covered about 6 books last year. So we go from 6 books to every single bookie. So I think our capability is scraped 13 bookies at the moment. Essentially every single Australian bookmaker. And yeah, they will be automatically scanned. They'll be automatically priced. All the bets will flow into a single bet list. And yeah, as the market matures or as the market changes, we can rescan the whole market, and we can see what happens. And that means that our throughput just goes through the roof. Like I know we actually had a band-aid solution for this over the last couple of seasons, and we released like a swing trade console. So guys again that had the time could go through our public releases and assess whether they could punt the other side because they'd moved too far. And I was speaking to some guys that said they were making more money punting the other side because things had moved way too far. And again, these bookies don't know what they're doing. So some bet moves too far, and certain guys were coming in using our swing trade console, and they were betting the other side to make 10% or 9% or something. So that was a band-aid solution. So now that once we go from the old way of doing things to the new way of doing things, which should happen in the first few weeks of the season, that's all gone. That's all gone. Like there's no more having to, sort of sweat and toil and go from book to book and figure out, has this release moved the market here and the bet there, and all you've got to do is wait for multiple drops because there'll be multiple drops every 15 minutes. We're hoping to do it every 15 minutes to maybe up to half an hour. So throughout the course of the morning, you would receive an email at the usual 8:45 drop, and then let's call it just half an hour to start off with. Like maybe we can do it faster, but every half an hour at that point, we would essentially have a new drop that would encapsulate like movements in the market and puts you in good stead to close off open positions that you may have opened in the first drop, close them off, find new ones. It's going to be. I don't think there's anything. Well, I already know there's nothing like this NBA Platinum package as it is publicly available, and we're making it even better. So yeah, that's how the solution is going to develop over the first few days to weeks of this NBA season.
Yep. So that's NBA Platinum, and obviously it's what's the most different or most unique package that we've got because of just the sheer volume of bets. That unfortunately doesn't suit everyone because of time commitments and other commitments. So the other two are a lot more accessible or mainstream if the Platinum doesn't suit you. So NBA Specials is 5, 6, 7 bets on a lot of days, so 40 or 50 bets a week. And there's more of a focus on the bigger games, so games that are involving the best players or best teams, or also ESPN games where there's a lot of other action. The bookies get a lot of bets on those. And then the first halves, they can be anywhere, but it's 1 or 2 bets on most days. And it's a much deeper market. You can get on for a lot more, slightly lower forecast profit on turnover at 5%, but that's more than offset by the fact that you can get a decent bet on. So that's specials, first halves, and platinum. And there is an early bird special right now where you can do the specials and the first halves in a season-long deal. We've got a few questions, Brett, if you're happy to take those.
Actually, I've got one point. I've got one point
Sure.
that I'd like to mention, and it shows you the inherent strength of the solution as well as the absolute return that has been made. But if you're assessing a model, what you're always looking for is an operating characteristic that has the win percentage rise as the unit sizing rises, because that's something that is hard to fake. Like you may have a solution that's high variance that's making money in prior seasons, but always look at always look at whether your signal rises as as the bet sizing rises. So if
let me give you the screen back so you can display that. Sorry to interrupt, but let me give you the screen back so you can show between the increased staking sizes exactly what you mean, because that validates the model.
What I'm talking about, and like this is general advice for any model. All right, always ask a modeler, right? What's the operating characteristic in terms of profit from from unit sizing bracket to unit sizing bracket, or just simply ask them, is there a positive correlation between your probability of success of that bet and the size of that bet? So as you can see here, we've got three different brackets, 0.5, 1, and 1.5. And as you can see, that win percentage increases from mid-50s to high 50s from tranche to tranche. And that also happens with our live feed results as well. It goes from around 56 to almost 59 to up to 63. So there's a clear delineation of profitability as your unit size increases. And that is a hallmark of a solution that is really honed in. it's really honed in. Whereas you might see modelers, or you might have packages or see solutions whereby it's quite flat, like the operating characteristic is quite flat. So the highest unit sizes, or the highest capital allocations aren't actually doing as well as the lower ones, which to me is always a red flag that something might not be quite right with the solution, or that solution may have been somewhat lucky in the past. So always keep out for that. But in saying that, it's quite difficult to gain a sample size in order for you to get to those realms where you can see that clear separation in operating characteristic from bet bracket to bet bracket. Hence the reason why right now, like I'm really focused on solutions that generate a large amount of bets for me, because I want to wash out my variance, and I want to earn my money as smoothly as possible, and I want to be able to have a very good understanding of the operating characteristic of a solution as quickly as possible, and that means generating a large amount of bets. When you're dealing with short season sports, i.e., I don't know, you might be punting AFL main markets or something. It's very difficult to try and discern your advantage, to truly understand where you are at any given point in time, because you're not generating enough of a sample size. So it's kind of like you're having to hit a moving object, whilst you're also driving yourself. It's very difficult to understand where you truly sit in short season sports. Like, you might have 3 or 4 good years, and that could be pure variance. I guarantee you there's guys out there that have made a lot of money in the last few years in short season sports that have no edge, and vice versa. Guys that have given up because they've just had such bad luck. But given that it's over, 3 or 4 years of a short season sport, they can't actually see their advantage. So I'm trying to shy away from short season sports as much as I can. Or if I do get into short season sports, I tend to try and generate a very large amount of bets. And we did that with our own punting this season with the AFL. Like, we had thousands, we had thousands upon thousands of prop bets with the AFL. So if I get into a short season sport, that's what I'm looking to do. But in terms of like even big ticket items now, even with our like other stuff that we currently talk about, I'm all about throughput, like bet count and throughput, and washing away my variance as much as possible. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind what I've just talked about in terms of the operating characteristic of profit when you are looking to assess a solution, because that is much harder to fake than absolute profit.
Okay. So if I was to summarise that very quickly, I'd say the turnover part of what we always call profit on turnover is often overlooked or underrated, and that you also touched on the fact that in any modelling solution, with a higher perceived edge, when that actually occurs in real world, in real games, that gives you more confidence that the model is accurate and should remain so going forward.
I would sum it up in one sentence. What is the shape of the profit on turnover? Look at the distribution of profit on turnover, and it needs to go up as the bet sizing goes up. If it does that, that's a strong signal that that model is keyed into that process, into that probabilistic process that it's trying to price and punt.
Yep. All right, a few questions. Matthew said, can a non-NBA fan follow the bets?
Absolutely. You can, it comes down to your time and your labor. But if you've got 2 to 3 hours a day, then by all means have a go at the NBA Platinum. If you can't, if you don't have that kind of time, then I would just think about the NBA Specials, which is just a fire and forget package. So that gets released at 8:45. It has 6 or 7. It always has at least 5 different bookies for that bet, and I would just log into your account and then bet as per the NBA Specials grid that you receive every single day at 8:45. It only takes you a few minutes, and then you can just do what you do for the rest of the day. It's pretty easy.
Exactly. Justin's asked, would Betfair be an alternative for the prop?
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I've noticed that there's now prop markets on Betfair. Um, I would say to you guys, don't go there because we will be watching that ourselves. And look, like you can use our signal to trade those markets, but I would say that only if you're very, very confident in what you're doing and you've got prior experience in trading and market making. I wouldn't I wouldn't worry about Betfair because those people, those entities that are going to seed those markets will be people like us. There will be very little square money there to sort of match with. We'll be there. So I would say that yeah, like you can take a look at it, but you won't find fruitful ground there. I can tell you that much.
You talk about not swimming with the sharks on the main markets.
Yeah,
You're
don't
suggesting to
swim
our
with the
guys not to
sharks.
swim amongst you guys in Betfair.
Yes, don't swim with the sharks on these Betfair prop markets because you'll probably get hurt.
Okay. Collins asked, what is push start?
A push chart.
Oh, push chart. Okay, yeah, I think he heard it as
Push
push
chart is
start.
okay. So essentially, how does a price or it's more like a price, but how does a price move when a bet moves by half a rebound or half a point? So what's the half point value of a point, rebound, or assist by player? So take example a like if I took the average value of all half rebounds for every single player, then the average value of a half rebound is about 20 cents. So that just gives you some indication of what it essentially gives you an indication of what you need to do when lines and prices start to move. So, take for example, you might have a price, I don't know, 189 on some prop, call it a rebound line at 5.5 at 189, and then you've got some line at say six rebounds instead of 5.5, and you want the under, and you're already showing an edge at 189. Like say we want to take 1 unit at 189 at under 5.5. The question that you would pose to yourself is what is the value at say 170 at a line of six, and that's where push charts come into play. It's looking at the value of half points, half rebounds, half assists, or half point movements in those three stats to figure out what the best thing is to do, or whether something still has a positive expected value after a move. And so let's just say that that is taken care of for you if you do the NBA Platinum package, because um, essentially all you get is a list of bets, and you take action upon those lists of bets as per what those bets instruct you to do, and then half an hour later you receive a new bet sheet. If you want to hang around and keep on betting, that's what you can do. And that bet sheet will have a rescraped or rescanned list of every bet in the market, and there's going to be some logic there to separate bets that have been released before and new bets that have only been encountered in that next drop. So without even having to think about it, if all you do is action those new bets that haven't been encountered before in the next drop and the next drop, essentially we are doing all the thinking for you. So if you can, like, if you take for example, some line might move too far from between the first drop and that second drop picks up that changed market, and it basically tells you to bet the other side. And so without even knowing it, you're intelligibly building your positions, you're closing off your positions because that optimizes your expected value. You're doing what you need to do to look to maximize your expected value, because that output is doing all the work for you. It's doing all the thinking for you. But that's
Yeah, the
that's
only
when we
caveat.
transition, right? That's
Yeah,
when we transition to the new capability, which might take a couple of weeks. Hopefully, no more than 2 weeks. I'm hoping it's only a few days. I just don't know how long it's going to take.
yeah, sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say the only caveat I would say is that if it does come up as value on the opposing side, or with a new line to take the other side, just to make sure you don't make that bet at the same bookmaker, because that will really be a red flag.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's something that you need to worry about as well.
Yep. I mean, you guys are automating that, so you're not. I'm just talking about from our
Yep,
members' perspective. Question from one of our best clients. He shall remain nameless for now, but he said that at times he can struggle to get on because a lot of bookies are quick to limit or ban.
yep.
There are a few bookies he's mentioned here which he says are no good. Top Sport he's found to be pretty good. He's just said at times it can leave him frustrated. I'm assuming other guys will have similar issues. I'm not saying Brett isn't great in getting these results, but would love some help on, well, you've touched on it earlier, and the fact that you'll be broadening the bookie base. But what tips would you have for someone like that knows what you do, knows there's a big edge, but the challenge is getting on? What would you say to him?
I'd say welcome to the business. That's
You did say
that's
that at the
how.
start as well, didn't you?
Yeah, look, this is how the punting world works, my friend. It's very difficult to hustle a dollar basically in this industry. This industry is brutal, and you'll be chased out of multiple books. It's very difficult. It's as simple as that. Like I can't really say much more than that. Like you have to employ punting camouflage. You have to have access to multiple accounts, multiple IDs. Like we probably burned about eight IDs, 8 sets of IDs getting on ourselves last season, and that's what we're going to have to do again. So that's just part and parcel of how this business operates. So I would suggest if you're considering the NBA Platinum, work out your plan of attack. I wouldn't be going into day one going, okay, I'm just going to have this bet list. I'm going to have the accounts that I've got, and that's it. I would sit down. I would plan how you're going to approach every single drop, what accounts you have available to you, how you're going to execute, where you think books move the fastest so you can get on those first. Just draw up a list of certain considerations for yourself, and then look to alleviate all your considerations, and then execute. So yeah, like I'm not offering you guys a license to print. This NBA Platinum package, it really is hard work. It's hard work for us. It'll be hard work for you guys. It really is it's really sweatshop labor. Like you'll be toiling for 2-3 hours a day. But you know what? We had clients. I've had clients tell me that they've made 30-40K over the last couple of seasons, and they work 2 to 3 hours a day. For 5-6 months of the year, and they're doing well for themselves. Like their hourly rates up there. They're making, I don't know, 70-80 bucks an hour for their time, and it's worth it. So you have to think about think about that cost benefit to you, and if it's not worth your time, then don't do it. And if it's worth your time, then do it. But
Yep.
I'm just being brutally honest.
No, and again, that's the platinum focus, which is
That's absolutely that's the
yeah,
platinum package. If you're a recreational punter that just wants to spend 5 minutes a day in putting on your bets, then yeah, by all means, just stay at the recreational end of the business, and yeah, spend your 5 minutes a day getting on, and that's it. We should be able to look to hand you 7 to 8% margins at the end of the season on 800 or 900 bets, hopefully. So yeah, it's a fair amount of action, and if you're getting on 50s and you're making $11,000 for an investment of 750 plus, plus 5 minutes of your time every day.
yep. Related to that, we had a question about Asian Connect, who you mentioned in a previous webinar. He wasn't able to get on there on prop bet, so he wasn't sure if you knew whether they are actually offered somewhere,
Yeah, so
somehow, and also if
play
there are
prop
other
bets.
overseas bookmakers that you'd recommend.
Yeah, so play prop bets are not available at punting aggregators. So Asian Connect is a volume aggregator. That's sort of that concept really tends towards the main market bet types, and really, yeah, it's not really something that you'd be thinking about doing, or that really would be available to you when you're punting loss leading instruments like player props. So I essentially consider um, the vast array of bet varieties at books as essentially loss leaders. Like they are there to sort of entice you in. they aren't really confident on their abilities to price these sort of punting alternatives. But what they really want to do is get you punting on a line that has been shaped by a global market. So essentially, what that means in simple English is that they try to get your foot in the door by punting player props, and then see whether you have the ability to give into temptation and start punting main markets, which they know isn't emanating from themselves. Like they're just taking a global line and price, and they're much more confident in their abilities to take you on with the main market, because simply it's not being made by them. Most pricing in this country is done by contractors, or I'd say that some of it's now being done onshore, but they just don't put in the time or effort to price it, these sort of betting, these side markets in punting all that well. And you know what, guys, and not to blow smoke up my own ass, but the more driven, more talented guys end up working for large top syndicates doing other things, rather than working for a bookie for 90K a year or 80K a year or 130K a year. And so they've also got a talent problem. So yeah, that's the reason why we focus on these loss leaders, and that's why it's difficult, and that's
Yep.
why Asian Connect doesn't work, because it's really tending towards the more main market area in betting.
Are there any overseas bookmakers that you would recommend that actually take
You know what?
Australian players?
With overseas bookies, um, I would say that there were guys out there that used our sheet as a guide, and they had access to books in the, I don't know, in North America and the Caribbean, books in the UK, maybe European books, and they were using it as a guide to get on offshore. If you again, if how much you get out is what you put in. If you have an ability to access onshore books, offshore books, then go for it. Use our sheet as a guide, and see if you can do some damage offshore. I'm sure you can. I've had some interesting conversations with a whole bunch of people of late, and there's a lot of crazy punting going on in every part of the world. I'm hearing stuff out of Eastern Europe, South America. There's there are books everywhere. I'm not assuming that you guys have access to them, but let's just say it would be a bonus to you if you have those connections, if you have those abilities. See what's out there, and exploit it.
Yep. Michael says, I am a small stakes punter in plain talk. How much on specials would I need to break even for the season at $750, e.g. $100 a day overall times 5 or so bets? This is probably a lower level question than what we've had. Becomes a maths equation basically, Michael, in that
Well, no, look,
Brett,
he's
the,
well, that's a fair question. I'll give you
yep,
the honest answer. He's asking, how much do I need to punt to break even? If
yep,
you punted $5 stakes last year, you still would have made a 25% return last season. So if you punt 50s on each and every bet, you would have made $10,900 last year. Um, so yeah, that's you can still make 10 times your money or more punting 50s. So yeah, that's what you can do. So you punt fives to break even, and punt 50s and make 10 times your starting amount.
yep. Oh, the one disclaimer I'll say to that is last season was exceptional, wasn't it? Like we're saying 7% prop, we will be very happy with this season. Last
Look,
season was
I would,
more than
yeah,
double that, and we can't guarantee that again.
that's true. That's true. So
Mhm.
if we keep to the long-term average, which has been 8.5, 9%, if
Mhm.
you punt 50s going into 8.5, 9%, you'll be making 5.5, 6K. So if your outlay's 750 and you're coming back with 5 or 6K at the end of the season, you're still making 400% return on capital. Oh, sorry, not a return on capital, but a return on your expenses, plus 5 minutes a day.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's it's almost too good to be true, but it's not, because we've been doing it for 2 seasons.
And you'll be having fun along the way, and you won't be losing, which is what most punters do. So the winning is the daily double, really. Daniel has said, "G'day Brett, taking a look over the results from last year, they're very impressive. Two questions. One, with the AFL package at times, he struggled to get the same results because the market seemed to move quickly. Will the NBA markets hold up longer? And also, would the special suit a weekend warrior, someone who is mostly playing Saturdays, Sundays?" So it was about market movement and weekends.
Good question. Yep. So we also noticed that with the AFL package, yeah, things did move quickly because there is obviously a client base that's there, and I've got no doubt there's books on there's books on the feed that
Try and
don't
keep them out, but it's hard. They're using
yeah,
bowlers against us.
it is tough. Um, look, we really can't do much with the NBA specials in terms of trying to control the market. Actually, there are some things that we can do ourselves. We were doing this for the platinum clients last season. I don't want to talk about that, but we have some market shaping abilities um, because some bookmakers they're just terrible with profiling. Um, or yeah, like I just won't talk about it. But there are some things that we can do to shake the market for the specials release. Maybe we can do that with certain accounts that we know have that capability. So look, we'll try our best to sort of shape the market for you to keep prices holding. But what you need to do in order to exploit that release is just be ready to go at 8:45. Have your accounts ready to go, and then punt as quickly as possible. Now, in terms of your second question, yeah, look, if you are a weekend warrior, we do find that getting on weekends is somewhat easier because the books do have more action on weekends, and they definitely do get more action on TV games, which is mind you a focus for that package. So unlike the NBA Platinum, which is just motors out bets, the NBA Specials package focuses on bets for your entertainment. So it basically does every single TV game available on Foxtel, and it does all the popular teams as well. So um, that generally means that you should be able to get on better because we're focusing on TV games and more popular teams. And look, we also like to stick to star players as well, because what we have found is that if you take, I don't know, Steph Curry unders, Durant unders, you take superstars at the under or even the over, like that tends to hold a lot more because there's decent uh, two-way action going on a certain player at some books. And so, or yes, what I also would say is also happening is that sometimes books take a stand on a single player, like a certain trader thinks he knows what he's doing, and he'll take a stand for a little bit. Yeah, so look, there are things that there are instrument, or there are things that we can do to help hold the price, and that is one, focus on TV games and major teams, and two, focus on star players with TV games and big teams, and that hopefully keeps the price up for longer. But you also have to be quick on the take yourself.
Yep. All right. Well, I think we can pretty much wrap it up there, but I had one important question to finish with. So, I mean, we've spoken tonight about the various strategies that you use, and for some people, until they hear you, they probably don't believe that, the bookies don't know what they're doing, or that, you can, without taking on a heap of risk, you can almost bet your bank in a day with the platinum stuff. That you've, like you said, you've got guys running around with a fair bit of cash, making cash bets at tabs, and there's a fair bit going on which you may not believe if someone just told you down at the pub, but having the chance to listen to you tonight, I'm sure everyone tuning in is now a believer. But one of the important questions we get quite often is, why don't you just bet these yourself? And why are you interested in sharing these with a membership base? What's in it for you?
Guys, we are furiously betting this stuff ourselves. We like I've got guys with RSI in their fingers from punting this stuff ourselves. There's just so much of it that we can't even get through this ourselves. And markets don't move; they move too far. Um, bookies want to take a stand on the bet. There's all sorts of reasons why we can sort of get fed first, and then basically hand this stuff out to you guys. Like we literally can't punt enough during that space of time in the morning to get all that stuff on and completely move the market. You know, we we had look, we probably had tens of thousands of bets ourselves online, many tens of thousands of bets, all at small sizes, and we also had our tab terminal operation as well. So yeah, we are punting our tits off basically, and then we're filling the rest.
Makes perfect sense. All right, we've covered all the questions for this evening, but if anyone watching this on replay or if anything comes to you between now and the season starting, by all means get in touch. It's a pretty exciting opportunity, really, whether it's something simple like the first halves or the specials, or something that becomes almost a second income for a lot of people in the NBA Platinum. So that's all I wanted to cover tonight. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Brett, before we wrap it up?
Oh look, I'm open to any other questions. I just want to make sure that everyone's on board with what's going on and that they're all clear. So any final questions or doubtful points, just let us know just quickly, and I can answer those.
No, we're clear, mate. We're good. We've
No,
answered
good.
everyone's question, but they can get in contact with the office if they do have anything
Perfect.
else.
No worries.
No
Thanks,
worries.
guys. Cheers. Bye.